not just for our athletes, but for you and the community. For families, check out our kids' camps, sport academies and birthday parties. For adults, why not join our newly refurbished gym with a 50-metre swimming pool, or book one of our world-class indoor or outdoor facilities, including our athletics track, sports pitches and courts. And for companies, check out our team building days, conference facilities and events. All this and more at sportirelandcampus.ie.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Yeah, you're welcome along. It's the 2nd of January. We've made it this far into 2020 and you're very welcome to OTB AM. I do hope that you'll be listening throughout and viewing throughout the rest of 2020. We're going to have lots of stuff coming up throughout the year and a packed show as well today. We're going to talk darts, football and a lot more. But we're going to start with football because Stephen Doyle was working for Off the Ball at the Emirates Stadium last night. Saw the latest insipid performance from Manchester United, absolutely battered by Arsenal in a 2-0 defeat. Doyle, was that pretty much how it worked out?
Yeah, I think so, Johnny. You say battered. Like, to be honest, like I said to Gary during the game, Gary Breen last night, my co-commentator, usually when you've got two, decent quality teams going up against each other, and United are still a team with good quality in the side, usually both sides will have purple patches throughout the game. But I can't really, when I think back to the game now, I can't think of any kind of time during the game where United had a purple patch. There's maybe some, I suppose, a couple of 5-10 minute periods maybe in the second half where they did okay, but there was nothing really that impressive. And yeah, Arsenal really, they dominated possession, dominated the play throughout the match. I thought there was some really poor performances in that Manchester United team. Again, David De Gea with another mistake leading to that second goal. Luke Shaw was really disappointed. He really got a roasting from Nicola Pepe, who scored that first goal for Arsenal. I thought Luke Shaw really, I don't know, I'm left scratching my head sometimes watching Luke Shaw play. He's very highly rated, it seems, in the Premier League in England. I'm not sure about you, Johnny. I'm sure you've seen the guy playing.
He doesn't really look like a footballer, though, does he? Like he doesn't actually look like a footballer anymore. Like from his early days as a kind of a precocious player at Southampton, he like if you're a winger and you're taking on Shaw, you're probably like, yeah, I fancy this.
Yeah, we even said it before the game that Gary was talking before the match that he felt that the Arsenal could get some joy down that right side as well. And they have obviously Ainsley Maitland-Niles, who's, I suppose, for the shortage of right backs at Arsenal, has been playing well in that position at right back. He's a right midfielder. He's not a right back by trade. He had some good play down that right side as well. And then I suppose from an Arsenal perspective, there's some really good performances in that Arsenal side. I thought Mesut Ozil was very impressive.
He was absolutely excellent, Doyle, especially first half, just pulling the strings. He looks like a rejuvenated character, doesn't he?
Yeah, Mikel Arteta said in the build-up to the game that he wants to bring the best out of him, and he says he will build that team around him to get the best out of him, but he also wants to see some work rate from Mesut Ozil, and I thought we saw that last night. There was a couple of instances where he got back, he was helping out with the defence, which we haven't seen maybe from Mesut Ozil in a while. I thought that one of the most impressive players in the team last night was Lucas Torreira. I remember watching him, the first time he really caught my eye, I think, was for Uruguay in the World Cup last year, Johnny. I thought he was excellent, and when he came to Arsenal first, he was having that really good impact. He's a really tigerish, small midfielder, but he's very good in the tackle. He's good at getting the ball out. And I thought last night he really saved Arsenal a few times. He was back in the box, helping out with the defensive effort. He was absolutely brilliant. And in fact, when you look at the two, because both sides played that similar formation, the 4-2-3-1, you look at the Arsenal double pivot, you had Xhaka beside Torreira, and then you compare that to Fred and Matic from Manchester United. And I thought Arsenal looked streets ahead in that position.
Yeah, when I saw the...
I thought Xhaka last night, he's a really good distributor of the ball. If you have Torreira beside him doing all the spade, doing all the shovel work, and then you've got Xhaka then, he was putting the ball out left, putting it out right. He's a really good passer of the ball, and I thought he looked sharp last night, Granit Xhaka.
Yeah, Jack, obviously his future in some doubt, but when you saw the Manchester United team, Fred alongside Matic, were you kind of thinking, you know, if you're in the Arsenal dressing room there, you're like, we fancy this. I mean, at this level, Matic, at this stage, like to even still be starting for Manchester United, and just from their perspective, it's, you know, those couple of two really good results, notably the Man City one, but they've been very in and out since, and this was just another real kind of 2 steps back performance, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And in fairness, I actually thought the much maligned Fred had been coming good over the last few games. I thought he had some good performances for Manchester United in that midfield. Generally, it was alongside McTominay. Nemanja Matic last night, I thought he kind of left Fred isolated a few times in that midfield. Now, there has been talk that Atletico Madrid have an eye on Nemanja Matic. And I was looking at Matic last night, and, you know, although he was getting around a little bit, you know, he's just, like, he's 32 years of age now. I just think Matic is past his best now. He's not a Premier League standard
100%.
player. And I think Atletico Madrid, if they were to sign him, they're taking a bit of a gamble. Maybe in La Liga, I suppose, maybe the pace of the game there, you know, might suit him a bit better at this stage. But Matic definitely isn't up to Premier League football at the moment.
Yeah.
And I just thought he definitely left Fred isolated. And as well, because, as I said, Xhaka gave that supply ball to the Arsenal attacking players, whereas United didn't have that. Rashford and Martial, they were starred in possession all night. That said, I think when you look at young Daniel James, 21 years of age, and for all his attacking play, Johnny, he's excellent. But I've seen United now 3 times have done their games over the last couple of months. I just think the work rate of Daniel James is one of his most impressive facets of his game. Whereas I thought Martial and Rashford last night, it's the old Martial Rashford. When they're not getting the ball, they seem to just go out of the game. And I just don't think their work rate is as good as Daniel James. That's saying a lot for a fella that they only signed during the summer.
Yeah, just on Matic, he turns 32 in August, so you'd imagine he still has a bit of legs left, but it doesn't look to be a Premier League level. Just on Arsenal, what has Arteta done to sort of change things? And I suppose one notable thing that seemed apparent from watching the game was that there seemed to be a really good atmosphere in the ground last night, which hasn't always been the case there, and also the fact that the players' work rate seemed to be up, you know, 10 million times really from previous regimes, and the crowd seemed to be buying into that.
Yeah, well, I'll give you a couple of things on that, Johnny. It was interesting reading his programme notes before the match, because he did speak about, that's one of the things, and he's been hammering it home at press conferences as well, that he wants the players to give the work rate, to give to I suppose he said there's certain standards at Arsenal that they have to meet, which he's asked them to do. Now, he's given them a game plan, obviously, which is working. I thought it was notable that if you looked out at the Arsenal team anytime last night, the lines were never too far apart. They were nice and compact. They all moved together, the defence, the midfield, and the striking players. And, you know, once you have that, once you've got a good shape and you've got good movement, that's a start. I also thought it was interesting in the programme notes where he mentioned this work rate stuff, but also he he mentioned Bernd Leno's mistake against Chelsea on Sunday. Now, he actually mentioned him by name, said that he made a mistake, but then he also said thanks to the supporters for getting behind Bernd Leno, and for, you know, after he made a mistake, for still, I suppose, forgiving him and giving that support afterwards. But I just thought it was interesting that he kind of individually picked out a player for making a mistake in the programme notes for all the fans. So I suppose it's maybe just a sign that he's not going to take any, you know, if there is any bad performances out there and they aren't meeting those standards, that he's not going to stand for it. I suppose, look, the atmosphere wasn't amazing, it wasn't out of this world, Johnny. I've been there for other games where I've felt a better atmosphere, but it definitely felt that they're, you know, I suppose Arteta's starting to win them over, but that you realise it's still early days and there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, we're going to have Daniel Harris on later on. He's going to talk about the latest with the Pogba injury situation as well. But just to wrap up with you, Doyle, the Man United Solskjaer situation, he, you know, if he kind of had gotten over a little bit of pressure there maybe about 4 weeks ago or whatever, it seems to be right back on now, because and you see it on Twitter, so a lot of fans are saying that, you know, he's not the man and that they're back to square one and so forth. What do you think the future holds for him?
To be honest with you, I think the Glazers, Ed Woodward's obviously pulling the strings there at Old Trafford. I think they're just happy enough to let Solskjaer do what he's doing, bringing through a few. The likes of Mason Green was done quite well. It was actually interesting watching that interview that So Marcus Rashford did with BT Sport, and he spoke about Louis van Gaal and the effect that Louis van Gaal has had on his career, and he's quite complimentary of the impact that he had there. Now, I suppose Solskjaer is doing something similar with some of the young players there, like Mason Greenwood, like Brandon Williams, who have been blooded under his reign. But I just, if United want to win trophies, if they want to get back into the Champions League, I don't think they're going to do it under Solskjaer. I don't think he's cut out to be a top manager. Maybe they'll see out the season and start looking at Mauricio Pochettino. Maybe take him to Old Trafford. We all know he's interested in the job. It's something that he would like to take on. But again, we're looking with, Pochettino still hasn't won a trophy, and that's going to hang over his head until he actually does it. And I don't know if he's even the right man to go in at Old Trafford and try and sort out the problems that they have there. But the problems are deep-rooted at Old Trafford. I've been saying this for a long time. Look, United fans know this. The problems are deep-rooted. It goes all the way to the top. And I think as long as the Glazers and Ed Woodward are there, Manchester United fans could be in for a lot more pain over the next few years.
Thanks for that, Doyle.
Here's Johnny.
Phil Egan, good morning.
Good morning.
Bit of dual
Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year. A bit of dual screening from you last night. What was going on?
So I was trying to keep an eye on the darts. Darts started just after 7. Obviously, Arsenal United started at 8 o'clock. Some would say United didn't even start.
Well,
the second half.
I watched the first half. Then I had to go off and have the dinner or whatever. But it was fairly clear that the game looked over.
Dinner on the knee, no?
I think for watching something else. I can't even remember now. But the dinner took a long time, and I decided half time this game is over. They were that bad, and it was. I don't know, it looked like I was kind of looking at the betting beforehand, and Man United were slight favourites, and I was like, this is a hard enough game to call in ways. I saw Matic was playing, I was like, but you got the darts in. Would the darts always finish in time for the paper deadlines on the Sunday? Because they had, it was all the papers had it today, there was plenty of coverage. I think it was even back page of the Independent, which we'll obviously look at.
Yeah, well, it was over. The fact that it was 7-3 to Peter Wright, it was over a bit earlier than you might have thought. Well, do you know what? Both players played quick anyway, so it was always going to be quick fire stuff. I mean, they were rattling off sets. In no time, Peter Wright was 2-0 up, and you were kind of thinking the shock is on. But even at 2-0, when Van Gerwen got it back to 2-2, I just thought, it'll kick on here. Because my worry for Peter Wright was he's lost so many times to Van Gerwen. If it got tight, he might let the pressure get to him. But
was it he lost finals or he lost so many times to Van Gerwen?
Both.
Because he's 47, so he's the oldest ever first-time winner.
49.
49 was. So he's the oldest ever first-time winner of the tournament.
Yeah.
And I haven't been following the darts, but what do we got here? We got an alarm, which is like as if Peter Wright has said there was never going to be an issue. But Snakebite, there he is in all his resplendent, colourful glory. He obviously just kind of battled on, and he won comfortably in the end.
Yeah, you could say when it went kind of 5-3, the alarm bells were sounding for Michael Van Gerwen.
Yeah, you just saw that just off the cuff there. Is MVG not the player he was? Because I would have expected him.
He couldn't hit his doubles.
We're going for a quick ad break. Hopefully the alarm bells won't be ringing when we come back.
Wake up.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
They spoke about your arm not being down beside your side. I mean, this is not Irish dancing.
OTB Sports Radio.
Basketball would have been my main game.
The brand new sports radio station from Off the Ball.
That's my point. Don't play for us if you're a proud Englishman.
Now broadcasting 24 hours a day. Live on the Go Loud app, Alexa.
You have a whole new world of possibilities.
Google Home, tune in, and offtheball.com/radio.
This is OTB Sports Radio.
Well, it's the most important boxing night for 4 years for Irish amateur boxing, because their sole representative, Andy Lee, boxed out of the St Francis Club in Limerick, had a spell with the Repton Club in London, looking relaxed and confident. And it's upon these young 20-year-old shoulders that the hopes of Irish Olympic boxing are going to be based here in Athens this year. It is a big ask of Andy Lee.
When I started out, I just wanted to box, and that's what gave me enjoyment. But as the years went by, it became a reality. I realised it was something that I could possibly do professionally, and I turned professional in 2006, and since that day, it's always been my goal to be world champion.
Fighting out of the blue corner.
He wears the black trunks with red trim. Hailing from and representing Limerick, Ireland.
Two-time NABF champion.
Please welcome the hard-hitting, the popular, and the reigning WBO middleweight champion of the world, Irish, Andy Lee.
Let's cut to the chase. If you make it, right, and you win all your fights, tell us about the money. Come on, tell us about the money.
Money? That comes later. First you have to win your fights, then you worry about the money.
Now working out of the famous Manny Stewart's gym. And Andy looking cool, calm, and about to collect.
But I'll tell you this, Andy Lee's only had 4 pro fights. This is probably the most highly touted 4-fight guy that I have ever known. I mean, today Emmanuel Stewart was quoted here in the local paper in Las Vegas saying Andy Lee is a Hall of Fame fighter.
And asked Stuart, how is this boy getting on? He said, champion of the future, no doubt.
Jake LaMotta is known for taking punches, but he also gave it. I knocked Carl Daniels out with a great punch.
Oh, beautiful right hook.
Carl Daniels hits the canvas, and Benji Estevez says it is all over.
He said when Andy Lee landed that punch, the lights went out in Broadway. And
Lower from the left eye of Willingham, and he's beaten. He's surely beaten. Hagel and Thom are right. Hagel took the towel in. The corner have retired Willingham. Andy Lee is the winner. Wonderful victory by a superb fighter.
Andy Lee's best chance, maybe, unless Korobov runs into a stamina issue, that right hook. We've seen Andy Lee land some right hooks, including one against Carl Daniels at the Little Room at Madison Square Garden. That was like Larry Bird in a 3-point contest.
Hard left hand by Pogba.
There's that Andy Lee right hook.
There's that dynamite right hook. He caught each other. He's back kick. And Kenny Bayless stops the fight with Korobov standing up, and Andy Lee has another miracle victory.
That is so far the signature win of Andy Lee's career. That is a legitimate upset, a shocking upset knockout win for Andy Lee.
The winner by TKO victory, and now the WBO middleweight champion of the world, Irish Andy Lee.
And I'd like to say thank you to this man, Adam Booth. This title's for him, but it's also for the man who made me, Emmanuel Stewart. I lived with him for nearly 7-8 years. And I learned so much, and I owe this title. He said I would win a world title when I turned pro tonight. I met him true.
Home is the hero. Limerick and Ireland's latest world boxing champion Andy Lee touched down at Shannon Airport at lunchtime today, still coming to terms with the fact he's finally attained his boyhood dream.
it's surreal, but it's a great feeling all the same, and something I dreamed of and fantasized about, stepping back here when I won the title, come back to Shannon and back to Limerick, and it's a dream come true.
Richard's rugger thing.
On Off the Ball.
With Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. Team of us, everyone in.
Yes, indeed. Well, as the post-mortem continues into Ireland's World Cup debacle, I suppose no better man to conduct the forensic probing than yours truly. That's why the guys at Off the Ball have asked PK to lead the way. Well, surprising as it may be to some listeners, I'm no expert on women's hockey or indeed many other subjects I hold strong views on, but it seems to me that if the Ireland rugger team had taken a leaf out of the women's hockey team, they may well have beaten New Zealand in the quarterfinals in a penalty shootout. So maybe take that into consideration next time, Joe. Eddie O'Sullivan, the former Ireland coach, is with me to go through it all. Eddie, do you know much about women's hockey?
Yeah, I do, of course. You know, very similar to rugby, really. The thing about hockey is, obviously, apart from the sticks and the size, shape, and weight of the ball, it's the exact same principles apply, really.
In what sense, Eddie?
Well, you know, the nuts and bolts are the very same. You've got to batten down the hatches, circle the wagons, stand back at that man, see the rabbit, otherwise you won't see the woods from the trees. So, that's one sense.
Yes, in that way they're the exact same, of course. Picking through the debris of Ireland's dismal debacle, why was the deadly demise so dreadful?
Well, you know, the buck stops with the coach. People are having a cut off me, saying I have a hard neck, pointing the finger at Joe Schmidt, considering I was at the helm in 2007. And, you know, I'm all on for loyalty, but 2007 was the players' fault. But anyway, I don't have a hard neck. In fact, I've no neck at all, as you can probably see from this feckin' photo of me.
Yes.
I'll put that up.
I'm actually here, Pat.
Oh, and do you ever leave the studio? I mean, what's going on with you?
I have an idea, which is, why don't the IRFU apply to the World Rugby Board to have the World Cup played every 3 years, seeing as we always peak a year too early? That's my idea, and I think it's a good idea.
Well, you know, I mean, you can't pay the spud with a hammer, you know. Sometimes you spend all morning looking for your favourite pair of socks, and you look down at your feet and you realise you're wearing them. You know, that's World Cup rugby.
Yes, indeed. Well, I suppose that's it in a nutshell.
Well, it's not, because, you know, you can't shell nuts in a blizzard. As the old saying goes, sometimes you got to bury the treasure and put your snacks in a different trolley.
Yeah, gotcha, Eddie. What the fuck's he talking about? Now, I'm joined by Brian O'Driscoll. Brian, thanks for joining us. Some critics have said this World Cup was poorly organised, with predictably bad weather resulting in cancelled games, transport chaos, no contingency plan, and some appalling refereeing. Would you go along with that, Brian?
Yeah, well, I don't want to rock the boat here, Pat, but speaking in my capacity as a global ambassador for major sponsors of World Rugby, I think everything is great in the game, and the World Cup has been a fantastic tournament. And I say that in association with Vodafone. Everyone in.
Thanks, Brian. Well, Andy Farrell, the new Ireland coach, joins us now. Andy, I presume there's a lot of doom and gloom in the air after that World Cup fiasco.
No, not at all. I was really proud. I was really proud of the lads. I was dead proud. Proud as punch, me. And all the signs are positive going forward. In Thailand, new coaching staff. Obviously in the provinces, Graham Roundtree's in Munster, Stu Lancaster at Leinster, and Mike Catter's our new attack coach. So, in fact, it's the same crew, the exact same crew that were in charge of England 4 years ago when we couldn't get out of our pool.
Fabulous. Well, far be it from me to cast any judgment, but getting your cat involved does smack a little of desperation, Andy.
No, that's not what I said. No, Mike Cat.
Got to wrap it up there, Andy.
Mike Cat.
No, sorry, I didn't interrupt you, Andy, okay? So, a great week for Irish women's sport, and I suppose it culminated in the fabulous win by Katie Taylor. She's now the world champion in 2 weights, whatever the heck that means. Katie, delighted you could join us. To what do you attribute your great success, Katie?
Thanks very much, Pat. I'm absolutely delighted, you know, just great to have the opportunity to come on to the programme and talk about my success, you know.
Yes.
I want to thank God for that, you know, it's just amazing, you know, my whole career. I've just been dying for this moment, you know, and obviously the Olympics was a huge thing for me, you know, and women's boxing, you know, ever since I was a little girl, I was just always going down to the gym, you know, and Bray, and training me heart out, you know, every single day I was going down to the gym and Bray. I was just fantastic, you know, I'm a fairly private person, as you know, thank God, and I just like to hide myself away and read the scriptures before going out and beating the holy shite out of someone.
Beautifully said, Katie. Most articulately put. Finally, the Rugby World Cup has been put out of its misery. And thanks be to goodness, I think it's fair to say, to Malone Heron.
I'm still here, Pat.
Shut up, Owen.
I'm actually stuck to this chair, Pat.
Oh, and you have a voice like a circular saw, like gravel under a door. And that's been nice. Shut up, Owen. I could get used to this. The off-the-ball guys. You know, getting in touch with da youth. Yeah.
Richard's rugger thing.
On Off the Ball.
With Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. Team of us, everyone in.
My mission is complete. End of broadcast. End of broadcast.
I'm sorry, you can sit there and look and play with all your silly machines as much as you like.
What does that mean?
Fit to spit?
I don't really know what you mean.
Angry, upset, frustrated, steaming.
No.
Only in sex masochism. Then it is allowed.
Well, I appreciate you not pulling my hair, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Where did this ferocious determination out there today come from?
The media. Every one of them brought us off.
Somebody's out to get me. We've been shagged by Dublin. We've been ridden rock solid by people in Dublin. Had you known more pressure on you, more questions about you in your 19-year tenure here?
Nah, it's absolute bollocks.
Did you think coming in with a 69 that you could even consider yourself 6 shots back?
It's the first round of the golf tournament. Just calm yourself. There's an awful long way to go yet.
Hurry up, man.
Jock Wallace, congratulations.
What is it, Brendan?
What would it be? Let me think. I'm not sure. I'll have to think about that one. Think about it deeply.
So you're not going to draw me in it, and you have a look at all the facts, you'll see I've no comment to make.
You've made your name as a wheeler and dealer. There's not been much wheeling and dealing,
No, I'm not a wheeler and dealer. No, that's off.
Oh, sorry, I didn't go like that.
Don't say that. I'm a fucking football manager.
Richard's rugger thing.
On Off the Ball.
With Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. Team of us, everyone in.
Okay, you're very welcome on to Off the Ball AM, OTB AM, if you're cool. Yeah, it's time for me to look sort of semi-interested, scratch my head, and look like I've just got out of bed, which is kind of the case, actually. We're talking rugby, which is the reason Matt Williams is on the line. Hey, Matt, how are you?
Mate, that was a wonderful introduction. You're an outstanding human being.
Yeah, Matt, do Ireland have the player? I mean, preparing this for like 4 years, so it's not like we haven't had time, but do Ireland have the players to beat New Zealand? Really?
Mate, we definitely have the players. We have unbelievable players. I'm sure Joe Schmidt won't mind my saying I coached Leinster not so long ago and paved the way for some players who'll be on duty on Saturday. Now, that has no relevance to your question, but that isn't going to stop me from saying it.
Yeah, I mean, looking at Japan, so expressive and, throwing the ball around. I mean, Japan are pretty special though, right?
Mate, I think they're unbelievable. An unbelievable tournament, an unbelievable country, and an unbelievable rugby team. I take huge pleasure in watching those little Japanese guys play, run around and patronise the shit out of them.
Who have you been most impressed with on the Irish team? There's some good performances, right? I mean, who's your kind of standout players ever? Right.
I've got to say, I'd have to say Tyke Byrne, or Burnsy as I call him.
All right. Do you know him well?
No, mate, I've never actually met him, but we've got to get Burnsy more involved. He's an exceptional talent on the ball, over the ball, and on each side of the ball.
What does that mean? What does that mean, like each side of the ball? What does that mean?
That doesn't matter, Jared, or seeing as we've known each other for 5 minutes, I should really be calling you Gilly.
Okay. Yeah, I think.
Gilly, mate, we have wonderful human beings playing rugby union for our country. Let's not forget that. But we need front foot, go forward ball for our immensely talented backs who are not being used by this failed coach.
Yeah. Yeah, well, surely you can't say he's failed, and you can't say Joe Schmidt's like, I got failure, he's failed, failed.
You can if you're as obscenely jealous of him as I am.
So, who are the players would you say he's not using? I mean, is he, what's he not doing, or who's he not using?
Mate, we need go forward to get our halfbacks, Murr and Sexto, to control the game. We need to get Earlsey involved. Carbs, when he comes off the bench, Geordie Lama, or Lams as I call him, Andy Conway, and of course not forgetting Robbie Carney and Jakey Stockdale.
Jakey? Jakey?
Gilly, mate, not even his own family call him Jakey, but we've got a sort of unspoken special bond.
So when you say unspoken, does that mean
we've never actually spoken.
Yeah.
Yes, it does mean that.
All right. It's time to wrap it up, Matt. Now it's time for me to look into the camera and try and say something cool and off the cuff, but I can't really think of anything, so I'll just say thanks, Matt. Thanks. Go back to bed. I'm exhausted after that. Could I just move in here? It'd be a lot easier, wouldn't it? Just get a bed over there.
Richard's rugger thing.
On Off the Ball.
With Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. Team of us, everyone in.
OTB AM.
Welcome back. Yeah, we had a bit of a. It wasn't so much a fault. Was it a false alarm, Tommy Rooney?
I don't think it was a false
alarm. Anyway.
It was an alarm, Johnny. It took us all a moment or two to leave, but we saw the blinds go down outside and the newsroom all around. The newsroom were the first to go.
That was a bad sign.
Yeah, and then I ran into the other studio to see what they were doing, but it turns out the alarm was bleeding in here, so we couldn't stay on here.
No.
We had to go. So we were all congregated outside by the Luke Kelly statue at 7:37 this morning.
I don't think the listeners or viewers would have enjoyed it too much if we just ploughed on with the alarm in the background.
They got to listen to a montage of Andy Lee's career and also some of Richard Cooper's best bits.
Yeah, there's some great stuff there. It was, it's just, this is obviously the first show of the new year, so it's kind of hard to get your mojo. You're still a bit mentally tired from the Christmas, and then the alarm goes off, and you're like, Jesus.
What?
But apologies to Snakebite, because we didn't really talk the 10 minutes or so of darts, so we wanted to laud him on his victory over MVG last night.
No, we didn't. I didn't watch last night, I'll be honest with you, Johnny. That's why I had Phil in here this morning.
But to be fair, we're going to the papers, and he actually makes back page of the Indo, which I thought was quite interesting.
Here, yeah.
Probably because of the colour. If the Indo were black and white, I don't think they would have gone with that.
And the PDC is a big deal. The PDC World Championship is a big deal, you know. He obviously bet Van Gerwen last night 7-3. A €600,000 purse.
It's all right.
Not bad. It's the first time Peter Wright has won it. He lost to MVG in 2014. He was a serious underdog last night. But I don't think it was ever really in doubt. I think Phil being a little later to the deal or no deal, so you might chat to him there, Thom being as well. So that's the lead in the Inno this morning. There's also Huddersfield vowed to act over McClean racist chance. That's our number in the papers this morning. We'll get into it in a couple of minutes. Mourinho hits out an idiot coach, VAR and the ball boys. So Spurs lose to Southampton. Danny Ings continues his form, scoring again. And Jose Mourinho makes a story all about him. He does what he does the best. And also Rory O'Connor has a piece on Conor Murray's grip on Ireland's number 9 jersey has never been weaker.
Yeah, that's an interesting piece by Rory. He's obviously speaking about the fact that his position looks less kind of secure, more vulnerable than Sexton's gone into the Six Nations, and a few viable candidates as well, particularly the Ulster.
John Cooney.
Cooney as his main rival at the moment.
Luke McGrath, Jamson Gibson Park and Keelan Blade of Connacht are all in the mix as well there. Yeah, so the McClean story.
I admire him, to be fair, because there's a couple of times now in recent games where he's basically brought to the attention of the officials, because that's what he's been sort of advised to do.
He's bearing the brunt of it. There was an issue in the Sheffield Wednesday game last week as well. And the game was stopped. There was an announcement put over the tannoy, and I think McClean applauded the announcement, saying asking fans to stop the abuse. It's the same. It's happening year after year with James McClean, and you know, we're not going to come up with the reasons why or the solution to the issue here. But I suppose the club investigating their own fans and potentially banning their fans is a step in the right direction. The announcement happening officially over the tannoy is a good thing. That's not really making that much of a difference, but
it's in the back page of the paper.
It's in the back page of all the papers as well.
People are talking about
it, you know, and it's coming up year after year. And James McClean is the figurehead of it. He's getting a lot of the abuse. Michael O'Neill was a Stoke boss yesterday, Northern Ireland manager for a number of years, so he wasn't the only one that those chants would have affected last night.
It's staggering that he's taken a political stance effectively, and he's been quite honourable about why he's done this, but people can't tolerate that. It is, I think it's kind of good in a way that they're confronting racism of white people as well as racism of black people, because it's not as simple as what's going on in Italy and all that. And I think in terms of black players in Britain, it's Britain is nowhere near the worst, and generally there's complete tolerance of whatever your colour is, your skin colour. But the McClean thing it's just festering and it hasn't gone away.
No, it's not gone away. Huddersfield manager Danny Cowley said it last night. There's no place for discrimination of any type. We're in the 21st century in 2020. And Huddersfield are going to do their bit and they're going to investigate it, but it's going to rear its head again. It's not going to go away. Like when next November comes around, James McClean and the Poppy is going to be back in the news again. It's not going to stop. James McClean isn't going to back down, and I'm not sure if the fans, you can say, are going to back down from abusing James McClean either until drastic action is taken. Like, is it going to get to the stage where they're going to dock Huddersfield points for their fans chanting? It's
not inconceivable. It's not inconceivable. But you said something that's not going to go away. The FAI situation is not going to go away. And well-known Cork administrator Jerry McEnany, he's emerged as the favourite, according to the Echo in Cork, the favourite to replace Donald Conway as the FAI president. That's in an EGM on the 25th of January. That's an intriguing article on the back of the Echo. And obviously the FAI, it's funny because I was just saying this the other day, there have been such progress made on the pitch in terms of Irish players at the moment. Like, it's been a great Christmas. And yesterday, Adam Ida coming on for Norwich. 8 teenage strikers have played in the Premier League this year. 4 of them are Irish.
Amazing.
That's absolutely amazing. Like, because we've had so little coming through, and that was picked up, I think, in the Examiner, that stat. But off the pitch, things are still a little bit ropey.
Yeah, and look, it's going to be that way for a number of months. Things are not going to become rosy in the FAI for a long time, and even if it is I don't know what way it's going to end up. But off the field, Michael Obafemi's goal over Christmas, what a screamer! I know you boys were talking about it on air with Shane Keegan. Adam Ida got a couple of minutes last night, but it looks like he's going to get a chance in the Cup this week for Norwich. We all know about Troy Paradis. Parrott going to get a loan move in the Championship. Like Leeds United, after losing Eddie Nketiah, he's gone back to Arsenal. I don't know whether Parrott would go down to Bielsa or something like that. Maybe that's not the move for him, but Leeds are on the lookout for a striker.
The Championship stuff as well. So, like, Jason Knight obviously scoring the couple of goals for Derby.
But Rooney talking him up.
Rooney talking him up ahead of coming there. And I was only saying to you this morning, Malumbi's Millwall, they're 6th.
Yeah,
like the Championships is such. I love it. It's a basket case. The last time I looked, Millwall were just above the relegation zone. And Malumbi, getting rave reviews as well.
I'm a big fan of him as well.
Yeah, they played Luton, beat them comfortably yesterday, and again he had a good performance. I think playing alongside Sean Williams is huge for him. But
Aidan O'Brien in there as well.
Yeah, and just really, really encouraging times. It's interesting with Malumbi because Glenn Whelan is obviously is going to have to leave his club, and he's it probably won't be in regular football by the time the Slovakia game comes around. So Malumbi's case for getting some.
I think Josh Cullen's out injured too. So
yeah.
Jason Knight and Malone, if they're making that much of an impact at Championship level, they're going to be looked at, because Mick McCarthy's bread and butter is Championship football as well.
Absolutely.
He knows what players are worth their salt to that grade,
absolutely.
that level.
What else do you have?
I have the Star here, the Irish Daily Star. Again, ref stops game as McClean is abused. RT time as Mikel Arteta gets his first win as Manchester United boss. You're chatting to Stephen Doyle this morning. Daniel Hart is coming up a little later after Manchester United's insipid performance last night. And also down here at the bottom, a big story. Team Talk Mag broke it last night, their Tyrone news site. Tyrone to lose Cathal McShane. So Cathal McShane, Tyrone full forward, is set to sign a deal apparently with the Brisbane Lions and the AFL. He's about to make the move over. McShane's...
He's not that young, McShane. Is he?
He's younger than me, Johnny, so he's young enough. He's 23, I'd say he's 23 or 24.
So is he like older than usual to be making this sort of move? And
probably is.
Yeah.
He probably is. But
massive blow to the red hand, though.
A massive blow, because in terms of the profile of footballer that he is, he's such a presence for Tyrone. And also, on top of that, right, so when he broke through as an under-21 footballer, he was either a big wing forward or a midfielder who could throw himself about and could play a bit of football. But the improvement that Cathal McShane has made in terms of his shooting accuracy and his ability as a target man as full forward has been like an absolute standout over the last 2 years. He's just improved tenfold. And obviously his footballing skills, as much as anything, are what the AFL are looking for here. The Brisbane Lions also have James Madden there, a young Dublin footballer who we've never really seen after under 21 level. But McShane is very young, minor in 2013, so what is he, 24, 23? Massive blow. But we're seeing a lot of footballers like from Division 1 counties even step away this year. In Cavan they've lost Killian Clark and Darren McVitie, 2 massive footballers. There's been a number of lads in Meath over the last couple of years who've stepped away. Donald Lennon is back this year, but like you can't really stop lads like Colin McShane who puts in so much into their football career to go and play in the AFL.
Absolutely.
It's unbelievable. It's amazing. I know down in Kerry they have a lot of trouble with young lads, losing young lads like Stephen Cumber and Mark O'Connor, and they've held on to David Clifford. But like for the likes of Colin McShane, who's 23, 24, he's probably the right age to go to Australia now. And take advantage of a career over there. We had Dan Flynn here a couple of weeks ago and he was on about how he was too young at that age. Kieran Kilkenny didn't really enjoy it when he went. They were 18, 19, but he's 23, 24. Maybe this is the time to go. Also in the Star, Eamon Dunphy's column, United are a joke with Ole at the wheel. Matt Busby's basic principle was that no one player was bigger than the club. Who's he talking about?
Pogba,
yeah.
It was in the back of the Herald as well. Here Ferdinand wants clarity after Arsenal defeat, and that's about Pogba. And obviously, the Pogba situation. We'll talk to Daniel Harris about this, but talk of an injury now as well. And he's actually played very little. Came off the bench in the game recently. Did quite well, but
he came off the bench in 2 games. Got about 50 minutes, maybe 60 minutes. Then was rested for the next game. He appeared at his. I think his brothers and his family had hosted a charity match.
That's right.
And he appeared at that over in France, and was set to be in the mix for the Arsenal game. And when Ole was asked about it yesterday, there's a smirk and says Paul's people have advised them to get work done on an ankle injury. So, like
thinly veiled.
Solskjaer seems to try and play the game a little bit like that. You know, he doesn't come out and hammer his players. He seems to try and plumose them a wee bit in the media, which is whatever way you go about it.
I reckon he'd understand what plumose meant if you said it on the press conference.
I'm not sure.
It's a great word.
If I get that chance, I'll say it to him. But
he's going to go though, isn't he?
Solskjaer or Pogba?
Well, Pogba,
I feel like Pogba's going to go. I feel like he is, and he's frustrated me a lot as somebody who watched a lot of Manchester United.
I think he's a charlatan, to be honest. I don't think he's. I think you have a duty to perform for your club and your fans, and he decides if he wants to or not.
Yeah, and
what a talent! But
unbelievable talent. And you were talking about Matic this morning, who's 31, and his legs are somehow just gone. Maybe his ambition is gone as well. It seems to happen to a lot of footballers that turn up at Manchester United at 31. That shouldn't be happening.
No.
Especially if you're a professional footballer. But like if Paul Pogba was in that midfield against Arsenal last night, you'd be just thinking something's going to happen. Because even when he came off the bench against Watford when they were 2-0 down, he made 5 chances. And he is an unbelievable talent. But at a club like Manchester United, when they're in the depths of where they are, especially like Arsenal, they're not the characters you need. They just aren't the characters you can build a team around or form a culture around.
Back of the Mirror this morning, New Year Revolution, Arteta's new look Gunners and 15-match crisis with victory over Solskjaer. Shambolic United, and they've been shambolic a couple of times recently as well. And Mourinho, obviously, I was an idiot, and we have that McShane news as well on the back of the Mirror.
I've got the Telegraph here. Gunners on target, and at the bottom, Jofra Archer, injury fear, England fast bowler could be ruled out of the crucial second test with sore elbow. That's against South Africa. At the back of the Telegraph, Irish journalist Kate Rowan has her column Final Whistle and saying that Owen Farrell deserves more love. His feats deserve it. If he was an Irish, Welsh or Scotsman, he would have received far more adulation. That's a good read there. It goes into how Rapinoe and the likes of Hamilton and characters like Ben Stokes are received and how Owen Farrell is kind of left to the side. I also want to just pick out a quote from inside the Telegraph, and it's Paul Hayward's column, and it's about the return of David Moyes.
Yes.
Unbelievable win yesterday for West Ham. 4-0.
Bounce factor.
Yeah. Mark Noble, is he the top scorer in English football in 2020 so far this season? 2 goals. 4-0. But Felipe Anderson also scored, a man who has been very inconsistent. He was for anyone who played Football Manager FIFA 3 or 4 years ago, he was this winger at Lazio that used to cut in, a bit like Robin, and scored these unbelievable goals. And he always had this loads of potential. But
quality talent.
Hayward saying that a move taken straight from Jose Mourinho asking Dele Alli, is he Dele or Dele's brother? David Moyes rocked in yesterday, and he was asked about West Ham's new leader, Felipe Anderson, who cost 36 million when he first joined the club and has been in and out of form. Moyes said, I've been asking him whether he's a Brazilian. I said, Brazilians score goals. Brazilians make the difference. They do something that makes us all excited. I said, Felipe, you're not doing any of that. All I've been saying to him is, give me a Brazilian goal, and to be fair, he did.
Yeah, I'm not sure that kind of tactic's going to work week to week, but
it seemed to work this week.
Yeah. Back of the Racing Post, no halting, relentless Reds and Blaze. Next team likely to fall to rampant leaders, and that's obviously tonight's game. A fascinating kind of subplot, I suppose, for Irish fans, because Sheffield United have had an absolutely outstanding season so far with their Irish players key to that. And at the front of the paper, boom back with a bang, and that's Album Photo, who won the Tramore race yesterday, which he won last year en route to winning the Gold Cup. And rather deflated looking Barry Geraghty there after Champ fell at the last when about to win on his prep for Cheltenham.
I've got the Times here. Angry Mourinho idiot jibe. Spurs manager booked for abusing Southampton coach and then accuses the ball boys of time wasting. For anyone who doesn't know, the Southampton coach seemingly, as Spurs are about to make a substitution for the injured Harry Kane, who's now out for 6 weeks, massive blow. The Southampton goalkeeper coach jumped in and said Danny Ings needs to come off first. We get to make our first substitution before you. So Mourinho said it was time wasting. And he also said that he thinks that the video assistant referee is the actual referee, and that the referee on the pitch is now the assistant, so that the VAR should be now called the VR, the video referee.
There's a lot of truth to that, in that the referee on the pitch now is kind of he's just passing on the orders.
Yeah, there's a bit of that. And then there's also match halted over IRA chant, which is the James McClean story as well. And I've also got The Guardian. I'll just end on that, Johnny. And
well, you should show the front. I mean, how bleak is the front? I know that we're... Because, you know, if you start the new year with any existential crisis, climate change, the hottest decade on record in Australia, and obviously there's a lot of talk about the Prime Minister's way of dealing with it, but it's a stark reminder of the reality outside of sport that we are kind of facing at the moment.
Australia burns as debate rages over PM's climate change stance. I don't know about you, but on Instagram this year I saw an awful lot of Irish people celebrating their Christmas on a beach this year in Australia. There's a lot of Irish over there, and the wildfires seem to be getting worse and worse.
Yeah, it's my friend is over there, and he was just saying the heat was absolutely unbearable, and he's a long way away from the fires. The back of the Guardian as well obviously deals with the game last night.
Purple Rain, Wright shocks Van Gerwen to become darts world champion, and then off and running, Arteta gets his first win. And again, Mourinho, I was rude, but I was rude to an idiot.
Yeah, that's the back of the Sun. I was rude to an idiot, and there's obviously a photo then of Harry Kane on the back, holding his injury, which will put him out for 6 weeks. The back of the Irish Daily Mail, sock it to them, unlikely hero seals Arteta's first goal. Actually, just on that, I don't know if you saw it, I thought Doyle was a little bit harsh on De Gea, because the ball just came at him and he kind of...
Lacazette.
Well, he for the second goal, where he basically just kind of he put it into an area, but I mean it was a very badly defended corner. In that, was it Lacazette made the run to the near post, just glanced it on, but nobody followed him. I was kind of like, Man United had filled the box with players, but nobody followed them. And then I wouldn't actually have blamed De Gea, but
But it's not hard to score set piece against United at the minute. And De Gea, but I think the thing with De Gea is, you know, he pushed it straight back into the middle. Again, it's a reaction stage. You're probably right. Maybe he was harsh. It might be easy to...
Yeah, page 47 as well, Rory Keane, and this is Farrell must get 2020 off to a fast start, and there's plenty of rugby coverage to do with Ireland ahead of the provinces playing the weekend, and focusing on Farrell and obviously the scrum half situation as well. I want to mention this article in the Times, which Tommy put me onto early on. It's a really interesting article. Meet Andrew Giuliani, the man who was Trump's golf pro in residence, and Giuliani's dad obviously would have been the mayor of New York back in the day, Rudy. But there's a line here, nobody's quite sure how much Giuliani the younger earns from his job at the White House, where his duties often involve teeing it up with his boss. Some reports claim it's $90,000 per year. Others reckon it's $97,000. The confusion is perhaps inevitable because nobody's quite sure exactly what else he does with the money. And then it goes on to detail that this lad was actually a promising golfer. His kind of career slightly derailed. Then it comes to the end. The search for explanations as to why leads inevitably to the golf course. While Rick Riley wrote an excellent book detailing how Trump cheats nearly every time he picks up the golf club, his most regular playing partner, that's Giuliani, offers a contrary view. I can't tell you how many times I've been finishing lunch at Bedminster, said Giuliani Jr. And someone who just finished their first time playing with him comes up and says, I can't believe he's that good. I thought he was going to shoot 100, but he ended up shooting like 72.
I wonder, does he sound like that?
Probably not. Giuliani, I remember when he took over in New York, and he had this very clean campaign. He was just going to clean up the city. But his son was a very promising golfer, but has a strange role in the White House, where he's actually been catapulted ahead of some senior figures in the Trump administration now, because that's how it works.
It is.
It's a fascinating article.
We all know that the Kerry boys have been caddying for rich Americans for years down there and making their connections. So it's the way to do it. But also, that's Dave Hannigan's America at Large. It's always
Dave Hannigan, a really, really excellent article. And the Examiner has its sports pullout. Arteta's Happy New Year. We've Tommy Lyons on the back. Photo makes flawless return. Tommy was reporting from Tremor yesterday and has some good lines from from William Mullins and Paul Townend, and a beautiful photo I thought as well on page 16. This is Ballyheigue Strand horse and pony races yesterday, and just a silhouette of a couple of people watching as the horses and jockeys go by down at the beach. I was actually in Sandymount yesterday, and the place was teeming with people. Everyone wants to be out by the water. Dipped my toe in, it was a bit cold. That was it. Didn't. Maybe I might brave the water for the next, maybe over the next sort of 2 weeks before it gets really Baltic in February.
That's good, Johnny. You got to do that at the start of the year.
What have we got coming up?
So we have got Daniel Harris coming up in a few minutes, but right now we're going to go back to the Emirates last night. And
this is like you're presenting, which you did there at just before Christmas.
Yeah, but
played a starring role.
I did. I had about 10 minutes, 15 minutes notice.
Sometimes if you, no prep is no pressure.
No prep is no pressure. Yeah, and we got through it.
How did you like the presenting?
I got through it okay. Didn't really have to think about it too much. I have to be honest, I got a pang of nerves before I went on air, but we got there. I had a lot of help with my friends outside, Phil and Thom and Emma and Alex.
You're like Aidan O'Brien after a race here now.
And Johnny. What was the headline you texted me afterwards? What was it?
How Ward catapulted me to presenting stardom or something.
There you go.
So what happened that day was my phone just didn't go off. I think Netflix. I was watching Netflix going to bed, and I think the screen was still on when I put it on flight mode, so the battery was drained. And this morning my phone went off in unison with that of my girlfriend at 6:10. So
at the same time,
absolutely no danger. We're going to Gary Breen, I think.
Yes, Gary Breen.
Gary Breen was talking to Stephen Doyle after the game at the Emirates, and obviously he was quite critical of Manchester United.
Arsenal 2, Manchester United 0, the final score at the Emirates. Stephen Doyle here with my co-commentator Gary Breen. I suppose, what's your big take from that game tonight, Gary?
A lot of positives really in terms of Arsenal, in terms of what Arteta has done in such a short space of time. We saw a little bit of organisation in his first time in the dugout against Bournemouth, made it difficult to play through. Went to another level against Chelsea for 80 minutes, were brilliant. Looked like Chelsea had run out of ideas, but for a goalkeeping area, it looked like they would have won that game. But I feel that they've gone to another level today. The organisation was there again in a short space of time. They still had that energy, that drive, that organisation to close people down. Every one of those players were working ever so hard. And it was impressive, it really was. I think we're looking at players who have much maligned for Arsenal, players who have certain strengths but a lot of weaknesses, but Arteta has found a way within that system to play to their strengths, and it ended up producing a really impressive performance.
I said to you at half-time as well that I got the feeling that the players are all playing for each other, and that's what you want in a team, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is, but ultimately I think more than anything these supporters want them to play for them, and a lot of the cheers that you would have heard this evening weren't necessarily expansive, lovely, beautiful football to watch. It was just closing down tackles. I think Torreira at the base of midfield typified that. I mean, I can't count on, there was probably double figures the amount of times he saved situations and cleared the danger. So he was impressive, but he wasn't alone. Xhaka, who I wouldn't be one of his biggest fans, but played so well at the base of that midfield in terms of getting that ball into Ozil at 10, who was so impressive. Yes, in terms of his skill, we know that, but how hard he worked off the ball. But that was how he played against Chelsea as well. So we're seeing a consistency now. I know it's in its infancy. I know this is very early days, but it does look good.
Will Xhaka be allowed to stay, do you think? Is he going to hang around here?
Well, I don't know. I think you asked me the question, can he repair the relationship? I would have thought pre-match, no, because I don't think ultimately that the problems he has with the Arsenal fans are not necessarily about his reaction to being substituted that time and cursing them as he come off. It's notably that he just doesn't play consistently well enough, makes the same mistakes. But we saw none of that this evening, and you would have thought that Manchester United would put him under the type of pressure where he could be vulnerable, but we didn't. We just saw a controlled, disciplined performance, but he wasn't alone. We literally saw it from 1 to 11.
It'll be interesting to see whether that Hertha Berlin move materialises for Granit Xhaka. But another man maybe who frustrates fans here over the last couple of years is Mesut Ozil. I thought he was really good again tonight. As you mentioned before the game, Mikel Arteta did say that he wants to see a good work rate from Mesut Ozil as well as everything else, but that he will try and get the team to play around him as well. Did you see that tonight?
Oh yeah, most definitely. And I don't think it is Arteta saying I'll try. He says I'm going to.
Now, he said the rest of the team are going to have to provide him with the type of service that he can thrive, because if you get the ball consistently into Ozil, you've got a player that they've got no one of the same ilk in the squad. You've got a quality player. And I think at times Emery tried to get that work rate side to him at the expense of getting him into good areas and playing. I think Arteta knows him, having played with him, he's a teammate, so that bodes well, that partnership between the two of them.
The other thing as well is that Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who has been brilliant for Arsenal since he signed here, maybe not at his best tonight. So you think when you get him firing on all cylinders in a really good team performance, we could see an awful lot more from this Arsenal side as well.
Oh, without a doubt. But listen, I always felt that Arsenal were lucky to have Aubameyang. I think he's a superstar of a centre forward. The concern that you have is trying to get him and Lacazette into the team. So they'll push him onto that left-hand side, but he's comfortable there. But what was noticeable, and something what you didn't see towards the end of Emery's regime, was that he was willing to put that real defensive shift in, because more often than tonight you'd have seen him in the left back position, and that was the same against Chelsea at home just a few days ago. So he's not shying away from it. I never felt he would, and I've always thought he's a good character in that he'll sacrifice his own game to play on the left to accommodate his mate Lacazette up front, who put in a great shift as well. So there was no player that I potentially said was a weakness. The guys who normally let you down in the key moments, your David Luiz's and people like that, were just so consistently good tonight.
Sokratis and David Luiz played well at centre half, but the January transfer window opening now, will Arteta maybe look at it as an opportunity?
I think he's probably going to hope that Holding comes back. I think Chambers' injury is a big loss, because he was someone that he probably would have played a lot. That looks a bad injury now. He'll probably out for the foreseeable future. It's great to see young Holding back, but I don't know what value he can get in the transfer market, who's available. Is it going to be a significant upgrade on the two performances we saw tonight? Because if you're looking at that, then it's unlikely, because people wouldn't let centre-halves of that quality go. The concern that he will have is that, are these players able to consistently do it?
Pep Guardiola, who Mikel Arteta worked under, of course, at Manchester City, always takes cup competitions very seriously. Will Mikel Arteta do the same with Arsenal? They, of course, face Leeds on Monday night, third round of the FA Cup. How's he going to do it? Will he take that Pep Guardiola approach?
Yeah, listen, I think I don't necessarily think he'll try and mirror Pep Guardiola. I think, as he said in the build-up to this game, we play for Arsenal, we're expected to win every game, so he knows it. Can you imagine the crowd that's going to come from Leeds for this game? It's going to be a great atmosphere. It looks like Leeds potentially could get back in the Premier League from promotion for Championship, so they're going well, of course they are. It's interesting to see that young Eddie Nketiah, this young centre-forward that Arsenal have loaned to Leeds for the season, has been brought back now, who come back to Arsenal in January. So whether or not Arteta wants to see what he's like, it'd be interesting. But I think they have to go after their cup competitions and get some silverware, because that's ultimately what Arsenal are about, challenging at the top.
Now, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer might be scratching his head tonight and wondering why his United team didn't get going. They never really clicked at all. And as you said, towards the end, it was all hit and hope. So, there was no real pattern to their play. What's he thinking tonight after that game?
Well, I think it'd be disappointed. There's no doubt about it. There's no glossing over it. And I'll be interested to see what he says in his press conferences, because at times there's no consistency. There's no real... He seems to contradict himself. We're talking about Pogba. It's a huge miss from Manchester United. If he's firing, we're being led to believe it was a cold, then it's an injury. There's no consistency in terms of what he's saying. There's certainly no consistency in how his team plays. If you play against Manchester United and you don't allow them the opportunity to counter-attack, then they're going to struggle. They've got no creativity in that 10 area, and that's the frustration. We're talking about Manchester United here, and that's the big problem they need to address.
So, United, I suppose, looking ahead, they have had a good run of form. I'd be kind of a little bit, reluctant to maybe say, it's all going wrong again for Manchester United, because they have had a good run of form. They beat Tottenham, beat Manchester City. They've had a good Christmas.
But there's a reason why they're beating them players. Them teams, I should say. They're beating the better teams because they want to dominate possession. Tottenham, Man City, those type of guys. And obviously they got the draw against Liverpool. The only points they've dropped is because they take the game to them, so they can counter-attack and play their way. But as soon as a team says to them, we're going to try and sit back, we're going to put a good defensive structure in place in midfield, and you've got to show the ability to break us down, they haven't been able to do it. Now, this isn't one-off, and we're talking about Arsenal, but you've got to give context to where Arsenal are at the moment. They're a struggling team, mid-table, going into the game, essentially. So you're looking at it then now thinking, well, how can a team bottom of the league, Watford, beat them? How can a team that are struggling at the bottom, West Ham, beat them so comfortably? And how have Arsenal been able to do it? It's a recurring theme, and there's a real issues at Manchester United. As much as they want to put the spin on it in terms of the DNA, the culture, I just don't recognise Manchester United.
You certainly wouldn't be predicting right now who, if you look at the top four, it's looking like Liverpool, Leicester, Man City maybe to take the top three places. but you really could not predict with any kind of surety who's going to get that fourth place, could you? It's like, as I said before the game, it's the slow bike race again, isn't it?
Yeah, it's incredible, really. You think about the consistency that Chelsea had back end of September going into October. It looked so good, but I think a bit of experience would tell. It's a young team at Chelsea still, so they're learning their way. They're dropping points where they shouldn't have done. They got out of jail winning here because they shouldn't have done, but for a goalkeeper mistake through Leno in goal, which ultimately would have been 6 defeats in 8. They dropped 2 points again now away at Brighton, so they're making it a hard work of it. But again, Arsenal, Manchester United, Spurs again dropping points where you thought Mourinho would make an instant impact. It's not quite happening for him. So it's so much still to play for. Listen, Liverpool are ahead. They've done it. In my opinion, they've won the league. But in terms of that battle for that fourth position, it's going to be a one that goes right to the wire.
Great stuff, Gary. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was Gary Breen talking to Doyle after the game last night. We're now joined by Daniel Harris, who was also party to the performance of Manchester United in particular and a 2-0 defeat at the Emirates. Daniel, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Coming down from the high of the darts last night, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, the darts was absolutely great to see. I've interviewed Peter Wright a bunch of times, and there's no one on the circuit who works harder and wants it more. And I think, like most people, thought that he was never quite going to get there, that although he's a brilliant player, his finishing has always been excellent, but the scoring was never going to quite be enough to beat the best players on the biggest stage. But he was amazing last night. And what's really interesting about Peter Wright is most sportsmen, the way you see them perform on the pitch, on the stage, in the ring, is a reflection of their personality. It's just an extension of who they are. Whereas Peter Wright is the opposite. He's a really quiet, unassuming bloke. And what you see on stage is an alter ego. Well, I think what he said to me was that's the person that he'd like to be. And we saw last night the kind of person that Peter Wright is, who's able to deliver under the most intense pressure and beat a genius like Michael van Gerwen to win the trophy that we thought he would never win. So, yeah, I'm well chuffed for Peter Wright.
So what about these alter egos playing for Man United at the moment?
Well, that's one way of describing them. I can think of some other ways of describing them. I think that there are lots of different ways of looking at how United played last night. And one just really simple way is a midfield of Matic, Fred and Lingard is not going to beat anyone, almost. And you could just leave it right there. Like, United were away to Arsenal. That was the midfield. Of course United got beat. Why would they not get beat with that midfield? But obviously there are other ways of looking at it as well. As in, Arsenal tried harder. I mean, I'm sure that Arsenal fans will say, no, Arsenal are brilliant and Arteta's done this and Arteta's done that in the space of 2 weeks and he's a brilliant manager and all the rest of it. And I'm sure Arteta has got Arsenal playing, but to me, the major difference in that first half, which was when the game was decided, was not a difference of quality. It was Arsenal were first to every loose ball and they played with greater intensity and they played with greater conviction. And that is to do with the manager, but it's not really to do with coaching. It's to do with, I mean, I guess there are elements that you would hope that the coach would inspire the players, but it's also just to do with what comes from inside. And if you're a professional footballer, then you should always be trying hard. And we saw that Arsenal did that. And to get run off the pitch by Arsenal, to get run off the pitch by a midfield that involves Granit Xhaka and Mesut Ozil is embarrassing for United. And that to me, was the major difference, as I said, because United actually started the game quite well, the first 8 minutes. Then Arsenal scored with their first attack. And after that, United got discouraged and they didn't have the vim and the vigour to hang in the game when Arsenal had their little moments. And they didn't have the moxie to play hard, aggressive football. And so Arsenal's second goal was deserved. And after that, United didn't have the quality to do anything about it. But the major difference was that difference in effort and application, not in skill and ability.
Well, ultimately, then you kind of have to blame Solskjaer for that, because as you said, that midfield last night was bang average. But if you're talking about a lack of application and effort, in advance of some really, really shoddy performances as well since they beat Man City, that the book kind of has to stop at the manager there, does it not? And where is he going with the Pogba situation? We obviously are hearing contrary things as well coming from that camp.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that you have to blame Solskjaer. You have to allocate him some of the blame, but there's an absolute shitload of blame, and there's plenty to go around and no need to be sparing. So I wouldn't say it was just his fault, but I think one of the things that's starting to be disappointing about Solskjaer is that he's showing a lot of signs of weakness when he doesn't have to. So there are players that playing for United yesterday, he didn't have a lot of options in every position, but players like Luke Shaw, players like Jesse Lingard, he didn't have to play them, and they're going to end up costing him his job. And when you watch United play badly, you wonder what is going to be the consequence of that performance for those players. And the answer generally appears to be there isn't one, in that Brandon Williams might start against Wolves in the Cup instead of Luke Shaw, who was awful last night, but the likelihood is that Shaw will be back for the next league game. Lingard will maybe miss the next game, and again, he'll be back. And what really Solskjaer should be doing is he should be consigning some players to the bench until such time as he has no option but to use them, because there are other players he could play who are playing slightly better than they are. And there might be situations, for example, Williams had a couple of dodgy games, so Solskjaer took him out. And that was fair enough, but he was excellent against Burnley, and he should have had another game in his legs to be able to play last night, because there was no particular indication that Luke Shaw was going to come in and be a massive upgrade. Similarly, I mean, you're kind of moving the deck chairs around on the Titanic, obviously, but Andreas Pereira's played quite well recently. There was no need to play Matic or Lingard ahead of him, because I felt like he'd earned the right to stay in the team. And we know what happens when Matic plays, because we've seen it over and over again. And nothing is going to change. He's not suddenly going to become athletic. He's not suddenly going to become a brilliant passer of the ball. He's not suddenly going to be someone who can start dictating games and slowing down the pace. He will slow down his own pace, but it won't have any effect on what goes on around him. And ultimately, Solskjaer's weakness will also extends to the way that he deals with the board, in that he needs to probably stop towing the party line and say what he needs. McTominay is injured probably for 2 months. Who knows whether we're ever going to see Pogba play for United again. And that being the case, he needs midfield players. And he needs to make it very clear that he needs midfield players, because it's no longer at the point where he's protecting the players that he has by saying that he doesn't need midfield players, because it just puts him in a ludicrous position of trying to justify the unjustifiable.
Yeah, the Pogba situation, obviously, it's I suppose it'd be a bit of a joke if it weren't so serious for Solskjaer, but he had that little bit of a grin when he was asked about it yesterday, and revealed that he needs a foot operation.
Yeah, I mean, the Pogba situation, like we're all adults, we can all see that something looks slightly sus about it, but unless I have some evidence that there is something sus about it, then the notion that you see floated on the internet, and by not just on the internet, but by writers, I think, as well, that he doesn't want to play for United anymore. That seems, I'm sure he wants to leave, but in order to believe that not only does he want to leave, but he would rather not play at all than play for United, I would require some evidence for that. So I'm not going to assume that that's the case, but the fact that United have been without him for the whole season just indicates to me how ridiculous it was that Solskjaer wasn't given money to strengthen the midfield. And also the mistake that I think he made, and I've said this on here, said it even before United signed Harry Maguire, but spending midfield money on Harry Maguire, who has been at best okay, and for me, something of a disappointment in that we were told, and I mean, I guess when I say his reputation, his PR tells us that he's a threat from attacking set pieces, that he's great at bringing the ball forward and building attacks, and that he's a leader. I've not seen any evidence of this whatsoever.
What's your rating out of 10 for him so far this season, then?
4 or 5.
Wow.
Not any more than that. United haven't conceded that many chances and that many goals, and I guess he's part of that. But they've conceded so many goals at key moments that you can't really give him a ranking any higher than that, because he was bought to be that person that stops that from happening. And the good defenders that I've seen play for United, when United had been under pressure, they would stop United conceding goals more or less on their own. And the constant conceding of goals from set pieces, not every goal that United concede from a set piece is Harry Maguire's fault, but he's now the captain of the team. He's the leader of the back four. He should be the person that gets them organised in training and then on the pitch that stops Alexandre Lacazette running across to the front post and getting a free header. And Lacazette, I don't think Lacazette was his man, but he should be watching to make sure that someone is with Lacazette to stop that from happening, because that was that was miserable. That second goal that Arsenal scored last night.
Yeah, well,
and Harry Maguire was there to stop that miserable stuff from occurring.
The whole box was absolutely full of players, and none of them decided to go with him. But just on Arsenal, you look at the energy they had put into that performance, and Mesut Ozil as well was absolutely outstanding. What I saw of him in the game. Is this going to be sustained under Arteta, or is it kind of the bounce factor that David Moyes maybe is enjoying? Where can Arsenal go this season under Arteta?
I think that Arsenal it shouldn't really be about where can Arsenal go under Arteta. I think what Arteta needs to do is he needs to find the style that suits the best players that he has. He has to decide which players he wants to keep and which players he wants to get rid of. And he needs to integrate the young players that he thinks are going to be good enough to play for him next season. They're not going to finish in the top 4, so it's not really about where they can end up, but about do they finish the season in a position of hope? Are they better off then than they are now? When I look at the United side and the Arsenal side, I actually think that the Arsenal side needs quite a lot more work. If United signed 2 midfield players, you'd see quite a good team. Arsenal need quite a lot more than that. They need some defenders, they need some midfield players, and they need to work out what the best way is of configuring their attack. Because I think Aubameyang on the left, Lacazette in the middle, that's probably not something that's going to get them where they want to be in the long term. So it's funny with Arteta, because people seem to be very confident that he is some kind of savant without a great deal of evidence beyond the fact that Pep Guardiola thinks he's good. And admittedly, I mean, we'd all love that on our CV, but we don't know very much about him, so it's really difficult to evaluate the kind of style of coach that he is, because, yeah, he's definitely got the players playing for him currently, but whether that sustains remains to be seen. And what he's also going to need, probably more important than anything, is going to need an eye for a player. He's going to need to pick players that would improve Arsenal, and he's not going to have the exchequer or the pull that Manchester City have. So he's shopping in a slightly different market now. And in the end, because the squad that he has isn't that good, it's going to be that. Like, does he let the right players go, and does he bring the right players in that's going to define how far he can take Arsenal?
Thanks for your time, Daniel.
No worries. Have a good day.
Yeah, Sports News Next with Thom Malone, which is going to basically entail Thom and I talking about the Christmas racing schedule and what we can derive from that in terms of pointers with a view to Cheltenham particularly. But first, we're bringing you back to Kieran Donaghy's interview. The man who doesn't miss the shots, that's basketball shot expert David Hopla. He joined Kieran Donaghy in OTB AM to talk about his incredible career and teach Kieran some tricks of the trade. Here's a little taste of that conversation.
You're probably famous for being the best shooter of a basketball in the world, but tell us where you came across the game first.
I grew up in a small town in New Jersey called Keyport, and I played, baseball, basketball, and football, and was probably average at best at everything. And then when I moved to Baltimore, moved into the city. So, as you know, basketball is known as the city game, and I joined the YMCA, and I spent countless hours there because I didn't have any friends, and, basketball's a game you can really do things on your own, so I fell in love with that. And then I had a guy named Dana Cunningham. He played at Frostburg State. It was a Division III school, but to me, he was like my Michael Jordan. He showed me things to do, and he gave me a mimeographed copy of Pistol Pete's basketball homework, all the ball handling drills to do, and then I just fell in love with the game.
Yeah, that was Kieran Donaghy, and that clip's actually on YouTube as well if you want to find the whole exclusive interview with David Hopla. I'm always very wary of these ex-sports people coming in and taking presenting roles, because people
do you know you need to be wary of? Patrick Mullins taking our jobs.
Well, this is the thing.
He had a piece in the Irish Racing Yearbook, which is still on sale apparently, but an interview with Ruby Walsh, and it's genuinely one of the best pieces of sports writing I've ever come across. Yeah,
when I worked for the Irish Independent, I had to kind of ghostwrite some of Patrick's articles, but he actually sent them in, and they just didn't need any editing.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, you're...
Sure you build for it, though.
And yeah, well, you're like a record-breaking amateur, you're son of Willie Mullins, you're doing everything so well on the racing circuit, and now you're just give me something.
He's such a good rider. Let's start with sports season before we go into the racing, will we?
Start with our giving out about people who may take our jobs in our future. What's going on in the world of sport?
Well, Manchester United look like they will without Pogba for much of the month. The midfielder missed last night's 2-1 Premier League loss to Arsenal and needs an operation on an ankle injury. United manager Ole Gunnar Solskjaer says, though, it isn't a major problem.
It's something that has to be sorted and dealt with within a time frame, and he's been advised to do it as soon as, and he'll probably do it as soon as, so he'll be out for 3 or 4 weeks probably.
I'm not sure something has to be sorted within a time frame.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, look,
euphemisms and so forth.
Absolutely.
Maybe not.
He can't go in the window, though. They're not going to get money for him. Right, speaking of not so happy Christmases, Tottenham boss Jose Mourinho did not enjoy his New Year's Day trip to Southampton in the Premier League. Angered when he saw time wasting from Spurs opponents and was critical of VAR, the ball boy, and his team, of course, slumped to a 1-0 defeat as well. Mourinho also lost Harry Kane to injury and was booked for an argument with an opposition coach. Here he is.
I was rude, but I was rude to an idiot. And for some reason, I was rude. But I was. And because I was rude, I deserve the yellow card.
Is that not the 21st century take on was that not a Ron Atkinson quote? Said, I won't talk about referees and I'm not breaking a habit of a lifetime for that idiot.
The ball boys are getting a bit too much kudos in this game at the moment. We're seeing lots of instances of them kind of being catapulted to the headlines, but anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, elsewhere, quick run through yesterday. West Ham made a flying start under returning manager David Moyes. They had a 4-0 win over Bournemouth. Leicester City and Manchester City attempted to keep the pressure on Liverpool with wins 3-0 for Leicester over Newcastle. Man City beat Everton by 2-1. Chelsea drew 1-1 at Brighton. Aston Villa, meanwhile, moved out of the relegation zone with a 2-1 win at Burnley, and 10-man Watford beat Wolves by the same scoreline. Liverpool will look to restore their 13-point lead at the top of the table later. They welcome Sheffield United to Anfield. It will be a record lead at the top of the table at this stage of the season, but manager Jurgen Klopp says he won't be celebrating winning the title, the first since 1990 since they get their hands on that trophy.
Everybody asks me about how was your 2019. My 2019 was brilliant, but it's not important. We count seasons, not years. Who cares about points in December? So we just created a basis which we will work with from now on. That's all.
Liverpool fans are going to be pushing Kerry fans, aren't they, for trying to keep a lid on things. Like, they've won. Just say you've won.
Well, they're 10 points clear with 2 games in hand. This would be Devon Lock-esque collapse if... I can't see it. I cannot see it.
Huddersfield Town say they will carry out an investigation into sectarian abuse towards Republic of Ireland international Stoke City winger James McClean. Their championship clash yesterday, which Stoke won by 5-2 at the John Smith Stadium, was halted for a period to allow the referee to address both managers. McClean had reported that he received abuse from the crowd, and he applauded when the announcement was made over the stadium PA, where fans were warned that offensive behaviour will not be tolerated. Meanwhile, at the top of the championship, promotional favourites West Brom and Leeds United took a point apiece from their meeting at the Hawthorns. Albion defender Semi Ajayi scored at both ends in the 1-1 draw between the division's top 2. That result keeps Leeds above Albion on goal difference, with both sides 9 points clear of third place Brentford. Quick rugby story. Quinn Roos hopes of returning to the Irish side for the Six Nations have been dashed. The 29-year-old requires surgery on a hand injury he picked up against Munster over the Christmas interprovincial titles. And in darts, Peter Snakebite Wright took his first ever championship last night, beat Michael van Gerwen 7-3 in that one. Also became the oldest first-time winner as well, age 49. Big news as well, Fallon Sherrock, of course, she was the kind of breakthrough act of the darts. She's been named as one of the 9 challengers to compete alongside the top 9 players in this year's Premier League of darts. So the 25-year-old, of course, first woman to win at the PDC World Championship. And she reached round 3. Of course, one challenger appears with the top 9 darts players every week, which gets underway in Aberdeen on the 6th of February. And of course, yesterday, album photo back at Tramore as well.
Here we have it, the front of the Racing Post today. Boom, back with a bang. An album photo who actually won this race last year en route to a less expected Gold Cup victory, returned to face 3 rivals at Tramore and did the job very nicely. And that's part of our little racing chat for the next few minutes. One of the narratives of the Christmas period was, where are we with the Gold Cup? He won the race last year. I thought I don't think he could have done any more yesterday. His jumping was brilliant. But then we look at Presenting Percy, who was unplaced. Kemboy was beaten on his return in the same race. Lost in translation, was disappointing in the King George. Where are we at with the Gold Cup?
Yeah, and I mean, you look at the Savills chase at Leopardstown and what kind of form it's going to throw up. I mean, you look back to the Down Royal form, that was really strong now because, Delta Work placed in that and Clan des Obo obviously placed in that as well.
Yeah.
I think it's muddling. Kemboy Albion Photo just stands out as the only one that's actually held up a bit of consistent form, doesn't he?
He does, and he's been basically flawless since he joined the senior ranks. And I have to say, watching the race last year, Presenting Percy never got into a jumping rhythm. Kemboy can jump. He's quick. He makes the odd mistake, but I thought he was very good in his jumping yesterday. Tremor wouldn't be the biggest jumping test, but he was nimble, and it never looked in.
Lovely and quick and effortless over his fences, which you kind of can't underestimate in the absolute slog that is a Gold Cup.
Yeah.
I mean, just looking through what will contend. I think Delta Work, I couldn't really see him coming back. Lost in translations, jumping was terrible.
Yeah, he was my kind of idea of the winner. I was very disappointed in him. Presenting Percy finishes 5th. He's a half length behind Kemboy. You do get the feeling, as much as last year's prep was, when you look at him this season and he's had a couple of runs, to think that he went there last year without any chase run in the season, because he still looks like he needs a bit more experience.
Yeah, absolutely. He's quite a big, gross chaser. The Gold Cup horses need to arrive there hard, fit, but...
This is class though, right? So he was 5th, he was 4th. Delta Work won the race. And they're just part of a huge picture that so many horses could win this, which I quite like about the Gold Cup this year. These Cheltenham preview nights, we've a lot of people with different views, I guess.
Yeah, I think the Gold Cup, again, for the second year in a row, is shaping up to be, quite rightly, the race of the festival. And that can only be a good thing.
Jack Kennedy's back with a bang.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Gordon Elliott dominated the Christmas period. There were 8 Grade 1s over the entire Christmas. You'd have to say the only disappointment was Sam Crow, really. Took 4 of the 7 Grade 1s at Leopardstown, took the big handicap in the Paddy Power, took a Grade 2 as well. And you look overall, and the 3 big novice races coming up at the Cheltenham Festival, and Gordon Elliott has a favourite for all 3 in Fury Road. Envoy Len, who could be anything and could go anywhere. He runs at Naas on Sunday. And then obviously Abacadabras, who was brilliant again. And the 2 miler, although some of the Grade 1s at Leopardstown, you'd have to say depth-wise looked a little disappointing.
Well, there's no doubt about that. There was no disappointment to the depth of Rachel Blackmore's performance.
This is the best story. This is my favourite racing story of 2019.
Well, Greg Wood had an article in The Guardian, I think, was it yesterday or the day before, just about Rachel, and that she's basically the best thing since sliced bread when it comes to racing. And
the best thing about Rachel Blackmore as a jockey is that
humility.
And you don't have to have this female jockey discussion about her. 6 Grade 1s in 2019, and you look forward to what's coming in Cheltenham 2020, and you're talking about potentially 5 or 6 single prize figure runners over the course of, so you got Aspire Tower, who could be disputing favouritism potentially for the Triumph, Honeysuckle, who will be favourite for the Mares, depending on what happens with Penny de Dieu, Manila Indo, who has a lively chance in the RSA, Notebook, who announced himself as an Arkle
now
contender.
fair for the Arkle. There was an interesting...
And then you've got, and that's without considering the likes of Monley.
There was an interesting line in that Guardian piece, which you can find online, and it's from Henry de Bromhead. Eddie O'Leary, the race manager to Michael, suggested to me last year in a taxi going to Aintree, because normally in a taxi you don't really talk anything of any real substance. You talk crap to the taxi driver or whatever, and turns out that he does or doesn't want to talk to you, but blah blah blah. There's Henry and Eddie, who's obviously a great judge. He said it's worth trying Rachel. He had a very high opinion of her. You'd always take on board what he'd say. We started slowly, but suddenly took off. So Eddie and Michael Leary have actually been quite instrumental in a lot of the lady riders, because obviously Lisa O'Neill, they've really pushed her forward as well. They've given opportunities to Katie O'Farrell, and they've obviously given a lot of opportunity to Rachel, who's...
the one thing I will say about Rachel Blackmore is that the way she rides her races particularly suits Jigginstown runners.
Absolutely.
She likes to be prominent, and people say, oh, it's an aggressive style, but I actually think to ride prominently in Ireland is actually a sensible thing to do, because a lot of, particularly beginners chasing maiden hurdles, dropping out the back is a death trap. Like, you end up stuck in so much traffic, you end up stuck around bad horses. If you're in a Jigginstown horse, in a maiden hurdle, they're a 200 grand store. most likely, or they've come out of a point-to-point for 300,000. They're expensive quality horses.
Well, we'll say with Borough Saint the other day, she like...
That was a sublime ride.
On Twitter now, I thought that was a great ride. A lot of people were giving out about the rides in behind, and it was probably one of those days where sort of horses in behind, they were making their comebacks, or they didn't find a lot, or blah, blah, blah. But I don't remember seeing her going off too fast and something. And
no.
This is not... She's riding a horse that says 3.5 miles over 2.5 thereabouts, 2-3 even, I think.
She won the race down the back.
Yeah.
I mean, she jumped off in front, took 4 or 5 lengths, got down the back in Punchestown, which is where you can win a race. If you can get to the kind of wall in Punchestown and let your horse have a breather and roll down that hill, as you've seen Ruby Walsh do over the years so many times at Punchestown Festival, you have massive advantage. She kicked on down the back straight. As she said after the race, the horse is aggressively approaching all his obstacles. Jumped into a lovely rhythm, had about a 12-length lead, and then coming down to the second and third last when everyone else was looking to make progress, she could just sit, a mistake happening behind, and
bang, bang.
That was it. She'd won the race because of basically sensibly taking as much ground as she could at the point of the race when she knew no one else would attack her.
They go on a lot about Bryony Frost, obviously, in Britain, in the British press. I think we've a more nuanced kind of appreciation of Rachel in that it's she's doing wonders, I think, for women in sport. And there is an article today about in The Guardian, actually, about women's football, which is obviously taken off. But what I love about her is she doesn't hog the limelight at all. And I'm not having a pop at Bryony here, because I think Bryony's, as much as like the...
I think she's foisted on her more than she courts it.
And she's like, she is well able to talk, but it's not foisted on Rachel, and she wouldn't be a natural in that position, because she's all about... But the thing for me about Rachel is not the fact that she was a failing or struggling lady amateur, because that doesn't really matter anymore. It was the fact that she was a struggling amateur full stop, and she went pro because she thought she'd get more rides.
Yeah.
Now, nobody could have predicted what's happened, but I just love the story.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you get caught in that cycle of constantly riding bad horses at terrible point-to-points, you just get sucked into it.
Yeah.
I remember talking to an amateur rider, and he said to me, I've ridden the worst horses on the planet. I rode a 12-year-old maiden the other day, and you're just like...
Sounds like one for the charity race for you,
You're just talking about, this is, you know, and these riders, when you just don't get any breaks, and then you're constantly sitting on bad horses, they just fall off the planet.
They do. Our final talking point in this little racing slot is the smudged champion hurdle picture. Where do we start?
I mean, all you got to do, at this stage, to become champion hurdle favourite, all you have to do is win a conditions hurdle, isn't it?
Yeah.
I kind of jokingly put up before the Borough Saint race, we're going to end up with Saglawi as champion hurdle favourite here, because...
And he ran a nice prep.
All I was thinking over Christmas is like when City Island jumped terribly, it's like they should have kept him over hurdles. He'd be champion hurdle favourite if they just left him over hurdles.
Well, Epatante is his favourite now. She was obviously disappointing at Cheltenham last year. She returned with a comfortable win, a handicap, and she travelled really well at Kempton now.
Yeah, she's a speedy sort who travelled really well at Kempton.
Mm-hmm. Whether she should, again, I'm not necessarily buying into the hype here. She beat Ballyandy in third and Silver Streak.
It's
doubts about the others and that, obviously.
It's doubts about the others, and it's also, she was absolutely terrible in the Mayor's Novice last year, which is not the best race.
It's not. Now, even
Look, I think she had excuses for that. But
you talk about 3 McManus runners alone, right? So we had Esper Delaine was probably nearly favoured for the race, lost his life. Then we had...
Bouverdare.
Bouverdare is like... You know, he's almost favoured for the race by default. He's out for the season. And then we have the Mayor, who was rated 137 going into the Christmas hurdle.
Maybe just for context, maybe just give viewers 137. Like, Faugheen's rated in the 170s.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's Division 3 to Division 2 to Premier
like, you want to be a genuine top grade 1 horse, you should be minimum mid 150s.
And my idea of the winner, Saldier, is like, it's just he didn't appear at Christmas. There is that kind of nagging concern.
Classical Dream was absolutely terrible.
He was.
Ballooned all of his hurdles. Sharjah went and did his thing again. But like, what of Christmas for Patrick Mullins? You know, Willie Mullins, until New Year's Eve, Willie Mullins was heading for his most barren December since 2009. He had 19 winners from 128 runners. And then, look, you go ride him off, then he goes and has 6 winners in 2 days. But, Classical Dream, another disappointment for him. Chacun Soir, Fernie Hollow beaten again.
I wasn't... I was disappointed in Chacun Soir, but I wouldn't lose the faith. I think if he's ridden in a manner maybe that kind of advertises he's jumping, more so at Cheltenham, just get him prominent. I thought there was like 90% of that race I thought was perfect. It was just the end where he looked
like he blew up a bit, didn't he?
We have a treat for Friday night racing fans tomorrow.
Yeah, really.
Thom Bugsy Malone.
Yeah, Cathal Beale's going to be on. He is a brilliant guy. He's the chief executive of the Irish National Stud, of course, the Irish Thoroughbred Marketing Stallion Trail upcoming on the 10th and 11th of this month as well, where the public can go and see all the stallions, get out to the studs, and just I think it's a brilliant experience. See something completely different. Of course, if you're a flat fan, you know, go down to Giltown, see the stars. You know what I mean? Like, you see how these horses are different.
See the stars.
Yeah, it's just brilliant. Anyway, looking forward to chatting to him, of course, and their big stallion is Invincible Spirit, but they signed Phoenix of Spain as well, so his first season there this year.
Decorated Knight as well, one of the recent additions to the roster. Thanks for coming in, Thom.
Cheers, Johnny.
That was Thom Malone, who will be back with us tomorrow as well for the Friday night racing, and we will be back just after 9 a.m. with the return of Deal or No Deal. First, though, every Friday on Off the Ball, in association with HRI, we bring you Friday night racing, and we've had some really brilliant guests across 2019. Who's your favourite?
Well, I was on Warren O'Connor. I thoroughly enjoyed him, but I thought Chris Hayes was great.
Chris Hayes was great. We did in the year with Davy Russell in studio, and that was a particularly memorable performance by Davy. And here he is on the improvements that have been made and how racehorses are managed, and first, why he never pays heed to the favourite sag in a race.
You see, that's the difference between certain people. You see, your view on that is he's favourite, right? My view on that is he's a horse, and he has so much to do. But your view on it is...
My view on it is he's the most likely winner of the race. Yeah. So you're not riding a 25 to 1, do you know what I mean? So
but
there is...
I am.
You're not, like. You're riding the most likely winner of the race, and there's pressure on you.
Yeah, no, there isn't. There's no pressure on me.
Right.
Because he's 20... He's actually 40 to 1 because there's 39 other horses in the race. And any one of them can win the race. So... He's not 3 to 1 favourite, and he's 40 to 1 because he's this exact same chance.
You can't believe that, though.
No,
and I'm not even talking about pressure. I'm on about you must go out there thinking, I have a right chance here.
Of course
and belief in the horse.
Of course
as opposed to if I get one wrong,
I equate everybody else in the race to be 40 to 1. Do you know what I mean? So, like, I don't give anybody else... I don't think anybody else has a better chance than me. I think I have the best chance in the race, but I don't...
That's my point. Yeah.
But I don't care... The 3 to 1 is not in my mindset. I don't care about it. In my opinion, I feel the care for horses, and I think people get away from that a little bit. We would just take Tyrone, for instance. He, at the moment, is after getting a chip removed from his leg. When I started, you couldn't imagine that happening, you know. So then that horse would eventually, you know, peter out, and he wouldn't be able to run anymore. Nowadays, the care and attention that goes into its prevention is always better than cure. So they're now able to, the things they're able to do with you know, the vets, and it's a whole team. It's the horses are involved in the team, the jockeys in the team, the trainer, the owners, you know, and it's a huge network of people that the care for horses and everything. I think everything is changing for the better.
That's information and communication and understanding that you have data that they don't have that is useful.
Yeah.
And likewise, that they have information.
But I think it's the want. The want is there for everything to be better and safer and happier.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
The Sunday Paper Review
On Off the Ball.
When he wants to do something, he does it. A hugely impressive person, apart from being obviously a brilliant golfer.
My cousins disliked their dog so intensely that they renamed it Scalacci.
Yeah.
And the dog was called Scalacci from then on.
It's a great piece of journalism. That sums up what he's like. The intro to this is just brilliant. He is an absolute control freak.
Digesting the best stories on the back pages every Sunday afternoon on Off the Ball.
The Sport Ireland campus Blanchardstown is the home of Irish sport, not just for our athletes, but for you and the community. For families, check out our kids camps, sport academies and birthday parties. For adults, why not join our newly refurbished gym with a 50-metre swimming pool, or book one of our world-class indoor or outdoor facilities, including our athletics track, sports pitches and courts. And for companies, check out our team building days, conference facilities and events. All this and more at sportirelandcampus.ie.
Off the Ball 2019 IMRO Radio Awards Sports Programme of the Year.
Salah takes the shot. Oh, Mo Salah with one of the goals of the season.
Who will see their dreams turn into reality? Whose names will be etched in history forever?
Offtheball.com, best online publisher at the 2019 Spider Awards.
A big breaking story on offtheball.com for you this morning. We have the very latest on the Mayo leaks. We now know what went on in that secretive Mayo County Board meeting.
2019 Irish Sponsorship Awards Best Radio Sponsorship, OTB Super Value GAA Roadshows.
Well, when she comes back, get your arse back here, he said. Star is out sitting on the swing and Darren O'Sullivan is pushing him.
OTB Sports Radio, live online 24/7 on the Go Loud app.
This is OTB Sports Radio. OTB AM.
Very shortly we're going to have Deal or No Deal, but first let's hear from Shane Lowry, who spoke to John Duggan over the Christmas to reflect on what was an unbelievable year for the Offaly man.
Well-wishers, TV shows, text messages, any kind of mad stories from that you remember after winning the Open, a seismic change in your life?
I obviously, I'm a huge sports fan, so getting the recognition I got from other sports people, not only in Ireland but across the world, and but definitely in Ireland, even you look at the GA players, which would be my sporting idols would be GA players. So to get I remember Michael Dignan texted me and asked me would he be able to send my number to Brian Whelan if that was okay, and I said yeah, he can send my number to anyone that has legendary status like him. So that's the kind of stuff, and it's just been look, I've a few TV shows and requests, and it's just mad to think that I am where I am in the game, but I really need to believe it now and kick on from here and keep going, because I feel like I'm only starting to get going, and hopefully I can achieve a lot more.
I'm struggling to find a Liverpool fan now that's not just saying, yeah, we've got it, actually. I'm struggling now. I'm not, even the really dodgy ones are going, yeah, I was talking to Mark Lawrenson the other day and he went, you know what, Lauro can be a bit dour. Yeah. And he went, nah, we've got it. It's okay.
Yeah, it's so unexpected that the time they finally break this 30-year wait is anticlimactic is the wrong word to use, because I'm sure come April, May, it'll be a real celebration, but it is an anticlimactic 2-3 months until then. I just never would have thought that was how a team would break a 30-year duck. Right,
I'm going to give you an Irish analogy from a long, long time ago. I used to have a favourite runner. I used to love it. I was a middle distance runner and a long distance runner when I was a kid. Yeah. So I had a number of favourite ones, Cole and Cram and Ovid and all them guys. But I loved Eamon Coughlin. I absolutely loved Coughlin, right?
Chairman of the boards.
But he never won. He just kept on not winning. And he kept on getting close. And then the time that he did win it, and he was, anyone who remembers that race, he's going around, I can't even remember if it's the Euros or the Worlds now, but he's going round at the end towards the final bend, and he knows he's won it. It's that easy. He's pumping his fists. Yeah. And it's one of those ones where you've waited all these years, you've fought this hard, and then suddenly, bloody hell, it's easy. It's exactly the same feeling as that, Mike. That kind of feeling of, it's not anticlimax because you're going to love every second of that jog into the line.
Yes, of course. For the neutral I'm talking about, for them I'm sure it's just absolute joy.
It's time for a Deal or No Deal with Phil Egan, who was rudely interrupted by an alarm earlier on. I think what we're going to do on the radio anymore now is if we're going to say something that's on the verge of being going to get us in trouble or libelous, the alarm will go off. It's I
thought that's what it was.
Because we were talking about Snakebite and so on and so forth. Yeah. You were going to say something amazingly kind of erudite and informative, but you never got the chance. You never will.
Never will. No one will ever know what I was going to say.
No one will ever know. Welcome back to Deal or No Deal.
Good to be back.
I like this top one. So Borussia Dortmund won the battle to sign the 19-year-old wonder kid Erling Haaland, who's obviously son of Alf Inge. How highly should we rate him? Should a Premier League club have broken the bank to bring him to England?
I don't think so just yet, because what we saw of him playing for Salzburg, looked good. I know he scored at Anfield. He didn't start that game, but he started the last game, which was the only group game he didn't score. Now, he had his moments in that game, but I didn't think he was overly impressive. But you have to remember, he's still only 19, and Germany is a good league. Obviously, Dortmund is one of the better clubs in Germany. It was either going to be Dortmund or Leipzig. You probably thought it was going to be Leipzig, given the connection there, even if they say that there is no connection, but there clearly is. He obviously would have got to work under Nagelsmann, but Leipzig are flying at the moment. But yeah, he'll develop, and then Premier League clubs can have a look at him. They can see how does he fare in Germany. They've seen how he's done in Austria. Now he's stepping up another level, and then to be able to tell, even after, between now and the end of the season, I'm sure there'd be plenty of scouts going over to see can he cut it in the Bundesliga, and if he does, he's 19.
He's 19.
What I've seen of him, he's got, obviously he's huge.
Yeah, he's
quick
a real
though
athlete.
as well.
He needs to probably work on his technique a little bit, but he's a prospect.
Yeah.
Sticking in Dortmund for a moment, the Bleacher Report reports that Jadon Sancho could very possibly be tied into an early transfer agreement a la Christian Pulisic, which would see him become a Premier League player. Liverpool, Chelsea, Manchester City, Manchester United all linked with the Englishman making a splash in the Bundesliga. He's under contract until 2020 and expected to sell for 100 million plus. Man City, who sold at the German club, have a buyback clause and the chance to make the highest bid. How good is he, and where will he end up?
Yeah, he's quality, and he kind of, just going back to what we said about Haaland, where he decided, I need to get some first team football, went over, has been brilliant. Obviously got his England caps as well, and there has been a general feeling that he was always going to end up back in the Premier League, and Dortmund would be quite happy, I'm sure, to cash in on him. Who he goes to, I don't know. He's been linked with Liverpool, and I think maybe that happens because of the kind of player he is. He's pacey, obviously the
Dortmund
connection. But see, Liverpool are in a position now where players want to play for them. And Klopp has also told people how long he's going to be at the club, 2024. So that question is gone now, where, is Jurgen Klopp still going to be there when I'm there? So that would suggest that if Liverpool wanted him, they could certainly get him. Whether Manchester City would want to take him back, I don't know if City would be in the position to do what Chelsea have done plenty of times, where they get players back and they pay huge money to get players that they let go for next to nothing.
Tammy Abraham's new contract talks with Chelsea have stalled, according to Goal, because the 22-year-old wants to be on the same as Hudson-Odoi, which is 180 grand a week. Who's the better player? And should Chelsea just hand over the cash?
Yeah, I think from what we've seen from Tammy Abraham, people will obviously judge him on his goal scoring. And he gets, one of the things that some people criticise him for is that he's not scoring in big games. But from what we've seen from this season is he's a handful, not only in terms of scoring goals, but just physically imposing. He's quick as well. So, he has all those attributes. He's only going to get better. And unfortunately for Hudson-Odoi, he had that Achilles injury at the end of last season. So we don't know how good he's going to be, but what we saw of him, I remember the first time I saw him play in a pre-season game, I thought, who is this lad? And Sarri obviously didn't want to play him. Eventually he started playing him, and he saw why there's been so much talk about this guy. Obviously got the injury, but he certainly was very clever with being linked with Bayern Munich, and basically Chelsea thought, we don't want a situation that City had with Sancho, where you lose a young prospect to Germany and then he turns out to be unbelievable. So they paid the wages, but I think that's unfortunately what happens. If you're going to pay one young player that kind of money, then Tammy Abraham is well within his rights to say, well, I want this because I score goals.
It's like the Irish managerial job. If you pay an awful lot of money to your predecessor, well, I'm not going to take the job for a third of the money.
Absolutely, yeah.
The Telegraph reports that Jurgen Klopp has resigned himself to the fact that the club will lose Adam Lallana on a free this summer. Would he be lost to Liverpool, and where should he end up? I mean, he's played so little, really.
Yeah, he's just been injured too much. But he was part of that Klopp team, the first team that Klopp picked, which was away against Tottenham. And I remember Lallana came off in that game and he was shattered. And that's why Klopp always stuck by him even through his injuries, because Klopp demands work and Lallana always gave that to him. Very good technical footballer, but just been injured too much. And
he'd be a proper signing for a club that could have
definitely, yeah, he's certainly good enough to stay in the Premier League, that's for sure. And you just wonder, maybe he would be more suited to a team that isn't as attritional as Liverpool, because obviously
good point on the injury front.
He couldn't keep fit all the time under Klopp and the way that Liverpool play.
We're going to move on. After last night, lost Manchester United manager Ole Gunnar Solskjaer says the club would like to sign 2 midfielders in the window. Here's a taste of the players linked with the club via Sky Sports live tracker. Christian Eriksen, we've already mentioned Sancho, Emre Can, Vidal, Grealish, off the charts goal again yesterday, Dembele, Pereira and Richarlison. What do you like? And also, what percentage chance do they have of getting into the Champions League this season? They are 5 points off Chelsea in 4th, and I've been told by my authorities here it's a one-word answer, which is literally a number. What percentage chance?
I'd say we give them 40%. We'll give them a pass. But nobody seems to want that 4th place at the moment.
Nobody, and I was actually thinking this earlier. Who wants the Europa League? If like the likes of Arsenal, does Arteta want the Europa League, which is achievable? But we don't have time. We're going to stay in Catalonia. Deal or no deal favourites. Mundo Deportivo hit the streets of Barcelona to survey Barca fans. 80% of those surveys didn't want Valverde to get a new deal, and their first choice favourite to get the job, 33% is Klopp, ahead of their other front runner, former Barca great Ronald Koeman, 31%. Will Jurgen Klopp be the next Barcelona manager?
No.
Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang looks set to leave Arsenal in the summer with Inter and Barcelona linked with the striker. Would he be good enough to make an impact at the Camp Nou? And we did have Gary Breen speaking earlier about how much he rates Aubameyang.
Yeah, he's certainly good enough. And if you look at Barcelona at the moment, Suarez is certainly not the player he was. Dembele's had too many injuries. Griezmann's been okay. But yeah, there's definitely, I think wherever Aubameyang goes, he'll always score goals. And there was the only reason maybe he ended up at Arsenal where some of the bigger clubs wouldn't have got him. There was always this question about the way his attitude at Dortmund, where he was trying to manoeuvre a move away from there, but since he's come in, he's been brilliant.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me. And no alarms.
That's no alarms. If you missed it earlier, it was really radio gold. The alarm went off in the middle of the studio. I think God just couldn't listen to Phil and I talk darts that hour of the morning. But that is it all for Thursday morning. Thanks very much for joining us since 7:30, and we'll be back live on air tonight with Off the Ball from 7 p.m. Don't forget to subscribe to the OTB AM podcast. It's fully timestamped, making it easy to find exactly what you want from every morning's 2-hour show. And do remember, it's Ireland's first and only sports breakfast show. We upload all our best bits to YouTube throughout the day, and you can Chromecast that or watch on Apple TV or your smart TV. We are back tomorrow morning from 7:30 a.m. and we shall see you then.
Off the ball.
Salah takes the shot. Oh!